On our white belt to yellow belt test, we have 4 different stripes. I'm going to give you the breakdown of all of the material that you need for each individual stripes. I have the testing sheets right here, so I'm literally just going to walk down. When you come to class, I'll give you a sheet to follow along with at home. The first thing you'll see is formal attention. You'll also hear me say hachidach or hachidach. That is a way of saying it. But I'm going to use the term formal attention to describe this position. The feet are shoulder width apart, toes are facing forward. The hands begin at the waist and go out in front of the body. Formal attention, you're relaxed, it's right before class. I call the class hachidach or formal attention. Feet will go out, hands here, out in front of you, and this is how we begin class. The next thing you'll see on the list is rei and yoi. Rei is the word for bow. So, you're in a formal attention. When we go to bow, we step in with our left foot. Our feet come together like this. Left foot comes in just like this. There should be a slight space between the toes, making sort of a V. So we're here, feet come together, and we bow. Go back out to formal attention. Now, if we're beginning a kata, you may hear me say yoi. So we do the yoi, it's a bow and then a movement with the hand. We come into bow. The right hand makes a fist, left hand covers the fist. They should come together with a slight impact. Then I'm going to close my hands together as my feet, which are making a V, will come together. So all together it looks like this. I'm in my formal attention. I bow, yoi, hands here, and then I'm back out to formal attention. One more time. And that is formal attention, rei, and yoi. Now we're going to move to the fence position. The fence position is your first defensive posture. The fence position is a non-threatening hand position. If someone is trying to assault you or verbally berate you in some way, you don't want to have your hands by your side. And you don't want to stand like this. But you want to have your hands up in front of your shoulders with your non-dominant hand. If you're right-handed, your right foot should be back. If you're left-handed, your left foot should be back. But you're going to have your left foot slightly forward, hands in front of your shoulders, thumbs inside. Don't have your fingers open wide, thumbs inside. We call this the fence because this produces a barrier between you and the person. The next is UPP. UPP stands for Universal Personal Protection. Universal Personal Protection means something's falling on my head or something's coming towards my head. And I'm going to take my arms, I'm going to grab the back of my head and pinch my elbows together in the front. It looks like this. If someone is trying to throw wild punches, this is often the best way to protect my head. I can still see through my elbows. I'm not limiting myself as far as being able to see them. I'm not closing my eyes and doing this. I'm keeping my eyes forward, and I'm protecting my head. We call this UPP, Universal Personal Protection. You can also do a half a UPP. We call this shielding. But when we first start, UPP is with both hands. Now, you're also going to do 2 punches. This is your first stripe. We're still in the first stripe of the first belt. Your 2 punches are lunge punch and reverse punch. A lunge punch means that the same foot and the same hand are out and you're stepping forward as you punch. So, when you're in class, I'm going to put you in a forward stance and I'm going to tell you to step forward and punch with the same hand. When you punch, the hand should go out, should be in a straight line from the shoulder to the end of your knuckle and land just like this. Your fist should be 3/4 turned. Not all the way turned this direction, and certainly not all the way straight up. But it should be almost like you're holding the steering wheel of a car. If you're holding the steering wheel on both sides, you can imagine that's a 3/4 twist punch. So a lunge punch, if I start further back, my hands are up, I step, 1, 2. That's 2 lunge punches. Now the next punch is the reverse punch. A reverse punch is done off of the reverse leg. So if I'm standing with my left foot forward, my hands are up, my reverse punch comes from my opposite side. I twist my hip, lining up my hip with my target, throw my punch. I can step and reverse punch. So lunge punch, same side, same hand. Reverse punch, opposite side, opposite hand. That's my first stripe. If I'm coming to test, that's the first thing I need to know. What's on the first stripe test? Now we'll move to the second stripe. On this particular exam, it's blocking. So you're going to have the second stripe is all blocks. We begin with a high block. A high block, just from a standing natural position, my hands cross, my hand that's on the bottom is going to come up. When it crosses my eye level, I twist up. I twist up. I don't want it up here, and I certainly don't want it in front of my eyes. It should end at an angle, sort of like a house. If you think about the way a house roof looks, if I hold up two high blocks, this is the way my high block should look. Should not look like a flat roof, should look like a pitched roof. So here are my high blocks. Inside block, my hands begin back at my ear. This hand and this hand work together to pull my body, or pull my arms across my body, just like this. And then I switch here. Inside block goes to the inside. Outside block, my arms start crossed underneath, and I bring it out. Now from the side, this might be easier to see. I reach underneath, and I go out. And I go out. This is an outside block with both hands. We also have what's called a down block. A down block, from a natural stance, my hands are in this position, and I do a down block. My hands come up across my body, the hand that's on top, blocks low. So I have high block, inside block, outside block, down block. Now also, you'll see knife hand block, and on the test, it says blocks, plural, because when we talk about knife hand, there's actually multiple knife hand blocks. But the two most important that I want you to do are the high, or the mid-range knife hand, and the low knife hand. There is actually a higher one, but we call our high knife hand a normal or mid-range knife hand, and it should be about as high as the shoulder. So my hand is here, my hands cross each other and go out this direction. And you'll see that my thumbs are straight in line with my first finger. My thumbs are not sticking out, and they're not locked back, and my hands aren't curled. My hands are nice and straight when I do these techniques. So that's a knife hand. And a low knife hand is here. Not much difference. Shoulder high, waist high. Shoulder high, waist high. High knife hand, low knife hand. The last one on the second stripe is what we call a two-bone block. Now, a two-bone block is a very effective block because unlike some of the other blocks, it utilizes the strongest part of the arm. You have two bones in your forearm. You have a larger, wider space if you think about those two bones sitting beside each other. Instead of using just one bone to block, you're going to use two bones. So if a person throws a punch, you bring up the entire side of the forearm to block. This is called an outside two-bone block. This is called an inside. And you can do these with the hand open or with the hand closed because you're not blocking with the hand. You're blocking with the arm. In class, we will typically do these with the hand open, just like that. That way we don't confuse them with some of the other blocks that have closed fists. Open hand, two-bone block. High and low. That's the third stripe. No, I'm sorry, that's the second stripe. Now the third stripe. The third stripe is where we begin to introduce you to your stances, making sure that you understand what stances look like and how you should look when you do them. There are four basic stances. Our front stance has the front knee bent, the back leg is straight, and all 10 toes are facing forward. You'll notice in this stance, my legs are both wide and long. They are not one in front of the other. If I do this, I'm now unbalanced. I want to be wide and long, and I want to have all of my toes pointing forward. My front knee should be nice and bent, taking my weight, motivating it forward. That is a forward stance. The back stance is the opposite. The back stance, my foot steps back, and most of my weight transfers onto my back leg. From the side, it looks like this. I have very little weight on my front leg, but I have most of my weight on my back leg. This is a back stance. And if you think about how you might visualize the back stance and the front stance, if you're pushing a vehicle, pushing weight, you'd use a front stance. If you're pulling a rope, you'd be in a back stance. So there's the two ways that you can visualize how those two stances might help you in understanding the balance. We also have a horse stance and a cat stance. A horse stance is named after the position you look like when you're riding a horse. If you think about sitting on a big animal, your knees are apart, your toes, feet are in the stirrups, so your feet are facing forward. Feet should not be like this. Your feet should be forward, your knees should be pressed out. And this is about as wide as you need to be. You don't have to go way out here to be in a good horse stance. You should be where your back is nice and straight and you're balanced. This is a horse stance. Last is a cat stance. Now, cat stance means that your forward foot is going to be up and your heel, rather, is going to be on the ball of the foot and the heel is going to be lifted up. Your rearward foot is going to be turned at about a 45-degree angle away from that, and it looks like this. If I'm facing the camera, it's here. Notice this back foot, it's not completely sideways, it's more at a 45, and this foot, the heel is up. From the side, it looks like this. If I turn, it looks like this. This is a cat stance. So those are the four basic stances. That's how you get your third stripe. The last stripe, your fourth stripe, is your kicks. Now, unlike a lot of karate schools, our kicks are relatively low. However, you are allowed to do the kicks higher if you're physically able to do that. And I do recommend you working on getting your kicks higher, because the higher your kicks are, generally the better your balance and flexibility is. And that's a good thing to have, always. But in general, we ask you to kick about belt level. So for a front kick, we have our hands up, our kicking leg, knee comes up, points at the waist of our target, and we extend the foot straight out with the toes pulled back. We kick just like that. That is a front snap kick, and the ball of the foot is the weapon. The next kick would be a roundhouse kick. A roundhouse kick is similar to a front kick, but if you can imagine, if there was something in my way and I couldn't go forward, I would go around it. So my front foot is going to turn, giving my hips the necessary room to lift my leg up and go around. Still pulling my toes back, still using the ball of the foot. Knee up, just like that. Now, I can extend my toes and kick with the instep, or top of the foot. And it depends on my target as to what I would use for that kick. We also do a side thrust kick. Now, a side thrust kick can go forward or sideways, and I'm going to do it sideways just for the sake of the camera. As I'm facing sideways, my knee is going to come up, my back foot is going to turn as I kick sideways. Notice, if I try to kick sideways without turning my foot, this foot actually turns up that way. I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to turn this foot to cause my hips to go into the right alignment, that my foot is able to do an actual side kick. So we call that a side kick or a side thrust kick. The last kick is a back kick or a back thrust kick. And we'll do this from this direction. We actually have the class turn and look behind. Spot a target. The knee raises up, looks, kicks straight backwards. We call this a back thrust kick because it thrusts out. That's all the information you need for all the stripes on the yellow belt or white to yellow belt exam.